is up, people of the internet? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new release from UK progressive post-hardcore band Hidden Mothers. The band's new album, Erosion, Avulsion, will be released on November 29th via Church Road Records. So, despite so far only releasing a single in 2019 and a 3-track self-titled EP in 2020, Hidden Mothers have generated quite a reputation in the UK music scene, with sold-out headline shows across the UK, as well as performing at prestigious festivals such as Art Tangent, Portals and Doomlines. Their long-awaited debut album, Erosion, Avulsion, is a record that features all the blast beats, driving riffs, and impassioned screaming that Hidden Mothers have come to be known for, but is also drenched in atmosphere, haunting melody, and delicate emotion, thanks in no small part to Luke Scrivens' potent lyricism and his Jeff Buckley-esque singing voice. It may have taken a while to get here, but Hidden Mothers 2.0 will not disappoint. The album was recorded and produced by Joe Clayton at No Studio and mastered by Grant Berry at Vader Mastering. So, Hidden Mothers, Duncan. Didn't really know much about this band, to be honest. I'd heard of them just because they'd like popped up on festivals and different tours and stuff. But the fact that they are on Church Road for their debut was kind of like, okay, that's all I need to know. That kind of speaks volumes in itself. Because I know as a label, they have an excellent nose for sniffing out the best talent. Great teeth as well, Sammy. So, a new band for both of us, I'm assuming. But what did you make of the Hidden Mothers debut album?
So yeah, like new to me completely. Like you don't spend a huge amount of time like checking out tours that are not coming near us. Church Road, like we've spoken ad nauseum. Let's give them another plug again. They really are a fucking awesome label, and one that consistently deliver in terms of putting bands on your radar, but also as a great kind of first step to this band's probably going to blow up. And Hidden Mothers falls into that camp. The kind of post-hardcore thing is nowhere near as popular as it was 20 years ago, right? Like, let's be honest about it. And that's not because it's a worn out or tired formula. I just think people have erred to go more technical and less emotional in the way they do their heavy music. I don't know why that is, but they just have. Like, aggression has almost supplanted emotion in music, and as a result, every now and again, there's a kind of good emotional post-hardcore album that lands, and we spend a lot of time talking about how it makes us feel. Like, the way that you kind of feel like inexplicably, a line will be delivered and the hair on the back of your neck goes up. You get chills listening to it because it just hits a chord with you. If we were awash with music like that, you know, we would be desensitized to it. That's just the way it is. The same way, like anyone that would go and see Terrifier 3 after seeing Terrifier 1 or 2 would expect, you know, anything that happens on the screen to shock them. It won't, because you've already seen it done twice before. It's the same idea, or why Saw movies have less of an interest the longer they go on. You're just counting down the moments until someone's arm snaps in a horrible device. There is a level where we get desensitized to music when it's played a particular way. That's why I savor these moments when we get bands like this, where they come in and deliver something, and you just feel the kind of well of emotion that exists at the core of the band and the way they're trying to get it out. So that's the setup, right?
Right.
That's me done my job here. I've given a little bit of background here. The first thing to note about this band, out with the absolutely bitchin' artwork and the colours that they use, which are kind of pinks and turquoises and all the stuff that a colour scheme that I generally love. So it had me in there was that actually, even listening to the opening song, I kind of got that kind of emotional core kind of booting through right from the beginning. And then I looked at the runtime and I'm like, there's a lot of songs here running comfortably over 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an instant worry to me because I don't want the songs to be like formula for 5 minutes. I want things to be interesting for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Hidden Mother's Gift. Hidden Mother's Gift are a band that like to walk. They like to take a little journey with their music and they like to start to feel a bit of space. Very, very comfortable to give you massive sections with no vocals at all and explore an idea and a sound. And aided with the production, which by the way is chef kiss clean on this one, but punchy when it needs to be. It's where the band's secret weapon exists before we speak about the vocals. The guitar work in this is really fucking good. Like, really, 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 really good. It sometimes errs into the level of kind of, I'm going to use the word formula, which comes with the kind of emotional post-hardcore sound, which are those one guitars playing something a bit chuggier, and the other one's up the top with some reverb and doing like the kind of higher pick cleans or whatever. But it really fucking works here, and if it ain't broke, let's not try and fix it or reinvent it. But the kind of meandering clean sections are the bits that get really interesting for me. And sometimes the vocals will want to sing over them, and sometimes they don't. But it kind of allows you to kind of paint a picture of what's going to come after or before. And when I say before, I mean on the second listen, I had a completely different like vibe on the album overall, having finished it. And that vibe was I settled more into its pace. Like, it does switch up and you do get like these savage moments, but it does sit predominantly within a certain BPM, and that is fine for what we get here. If you go back and listen to a lot of this music from like the kind of early 2000s, a lot of them sat within that as well, and it totally works. Vocally, we're going to talk about this. There are almost 3 ranges of vocal here. Maybe 4 at a push. There's one that's clean, right? So like no rasp on it at all. And it is very pleasing to the ear. And it's not overused, and I kind of love that. There's the next level that comes in, which is kind of almost like if you remove the accent, the regional accent, a kind of early Arctic Monkeys sort of indie raspy thing that comes in. The aforementioned Jeff Buckley-esque tones that come in as well, and then you get the scream stuff, the stuff that has all the impact. And they all work when they shouldn't work. And if that's all one person, then fuck's sake, right? I'm gonna assume someone else is doing some backings here.
I think there might be.
There has to be, because like like either the guy is literally like fucking walking around like a Rubik's Cube with many faces and able to switch in them, but it works, and it adds weight and it adds tone and it adds ambience, and they're utilised really well, and they're not overused either. So I love that. Also love the fact that like on a midway point on this album, they give you a Kate and Green or Cat and Green, and it is a fully instrumental track. And it's very ambient, very, very, very light. And you would think that would set up a back half that might want to take the foot off the pedal. No, the back half of this album, I would say to me, was more interesting than the front half of this album, because it's where I think the band really start to experiment a lot more. Like the track that kicks off what would be side 2, The Grey, is one that just allows like movement and thought. The drums are really creative, the guitar work is awesome, vocals are mixed up, just like excellent. And then it continues to push pace. The last 2 songs on this album, both well over 6 minutes, comfortably, but with plenty of things to say. There are... Just when I think I've not grown tired, but I've got to a point where I'm like, that, right, I don't need to hear any more of this sort of music for a while. Something will come in, it's usually directed by you, and it's generally because you've got really good taste for this, because you were much more into that genre than I was. I'll hear something that just grabs me and pulls me in. And with Hidden Mothers, it's kind of the honesty of the music. I just feel all the way through this that what the guy's singing about is 100% his emotions, and that will connect with me, even at times if I don't necessarily think the music joins it to the level. There are moments here that are of music and bands I've heard before, but it really works for them. And with that production and that kind of that vision throughout, and the vocals, I found it a very compelling listen. Like very, very, like the thing that it kind of engrossed me, this weird kind of curiosity that I was already kind of like, whenever the next track was kicking off, even if it was quiet or it was heavy, I was kind of like, I understand what you're giving me right now, but how will the track finish? Because it weaves in a way that the end of the track is never the opening riff. So that they're not playing by that rule book; they're playing kind of by their own. Hidden gem on this one, Grandfather. Grandfather is a big old bluesy bitch. And it stands out, but not in an abrasive sort of way. It stands out in a way where the final two songs are set up perfectly on this one, but also made me think that, if they wanted to do an unplugged set, I'm fucking there for it. They've got a mastery of their sound on that level, and it's not all just, well, we need to put a heavy section here. We need to. The Church Road are just a really, really clever label, and obviously I don't wish them to lose artists, but I get a sneaky suspicion Hidden Mothers are probably destined for something a bit bigger, short form. I wouldn't be surprised if another label snapped them up relatively quick. Yeah, there is a space in the market, specifically in the UK, for bands like this. And when it's done right, there's a timeless quality that means 20 years from now I could spin this album. I still go back to that first Glassjaw album. Everything you ever wanted to know about Silence, I will spin that, and it feels as relevant and as modern and as punchy today as it did then. When you check out like bands like Hell is for Heroes, or like Thrice, when you go back and check out those bands, there is a timeless quality that, depending on your mood, when you switch it on, it doesn't feel like you're instantly transported. Like I shove on Significant Other, it's the year 1999, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a given. It's always going to be that way. And it's just kind of locked in there. But when done right, I think post-hardcore does have this kind of timeless quality, and Hidden Mothers are connected into that. So I think this is a really, really, really promising album from a super interesting band. And one that I'm kind of glad that, once again, Church Road, man, doing the Lord's work out there, putting bands on the map. So well done, guys. And I'm curious. Like I say, you're a bigger post-hardcore fan than I am. So, and more a connoisseur of the music overall. How did you get on with Hidden Mothers?
So I did my due diligence.
Of course you did.
Had a wee listen to the EP. It was only 3 tracks in 2020, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I had a listen to that, because you could hear on the EP there was potential there. That you could hear it was a little more raw, a little bit more like unrefined, but you could tell they were still trying to kind of suss things out and find their sound, what works, what doesn't. However, in the time between the EP and the album, a lot's obviously happened. Clearly, they've obviously toured a ton and played festivals and all sorts of stuff. But they've clearly been developing their sound in that time as well, into what is now kind of Hidden Mothers. And the differences are quite big. Like, there's quite a big jump from the EP to this. This sounds huge. Like, the size of this band's sound has just expanded to another level. And Defanged, the album opener, that track actually has a bit of a kind of post black metal kind of shimmer to it. The way they've kind of coated it in atmosphere and the tempo of it as well. But it never like sits in that style for too long. And I think they're really, really good at transitioning from one style to another without it feeling like a massive leap. And I think that is one of the biggest kind of strong points of this album, is that it pulls in various genres from post-hardcore to Blackgaze to like touching on like post-metal and Screamo and like post-rock tracks. But it never sounds like it's kind of like cut and pasted. It's every genre they use on this release is kind of carefully molded to have like a kind of base in that genre, but with like kind of tones of other styles on the fringes of it. So when they do a shift like on Defanged from like kind of post black metal into post hardcore into this like kind of alternative kind of indie kind of vibe, it all sounds like woven together in a very kind of smooth way, and they balance it so well on this. They have a really good understanding of how to keep a track kind of moving. As I said, it never lingers and in a spot for too long that it becomes like uninteresting. They know exactly when to bring you a change of tone or mood. And I love the fact that like while bits of this are kind of raw and like kind of crushingly heavy, tracks like The Grey, for example, where they are leaning on a kind of much denser and chaotic sound. The rhythms on that track are quite choppy. The riffs get a bit kind of angular and dissonant as well. I got like little kind of like tinges of like bands like Conjurer in the slower parts, but then it delves into some really blackened moments on that track as well. And then there are moments in the album that are the polar opposite of that, where they give you something so stripped back and full of space and texture. Cat and Green, like you mentioned, is this kind of like has a kind of like post-rock kind of airiness to it, and the guitars, there's some kind of tasteful piano on the track, and the bass work is really kind of just very floaty and kind of warm. And then like Grandfather, like you mentioned, it's like kind of bluesy Americana almost. And that melodic side of the album is something they've clearly been working on. The old material never really went like nearly as deep on the melody as the album does. The EP had like a small kind of touch of it on maybe one track, I think. But they are very, very good at it, and it just opens up this band's sound massively on the album. For me, I got huge Thrice vibes on the cleaner side of this album, especially vocally. I think there's quite a few similarities between the vocalist on this album and Dustin from Thrice. I think, and it's not. I don't mean in like the ripping off the melodies or anything like that, but the texture and of the clean tone on the album, which has a bit of that kind of like a kind of smokiness or a kind of grit in it at times. It's got a real character to it, but also the emotion that they capture as well. I think Dustin from Thrice is very good at delivering melody that's like emotionally charged. And I get that same feeling on this. That I think the closing track on the album, Haze, it's really like just kind of bursting with emotion vocally. I loved how intimate the opening part of that song was, and the production really helps kind of accentuate that. It sounds like it's been like recorded in a church or like I don't know, like fucking P Diddy's bathroom or something, like just something really big. And it's probably pretty empty right now as well, let's face it. But that emotion, the emotion doesn't just come across in the clean vocal either. I think the more kind of like post-hardcore stuff, vocally it feels like very cathartic on the album. Some of the screams on like Death Curl or Violet Sun, sorry, you can really feel it coming across in those the vocal delivery. On the production side, I think Joe and Grant Berry have done a
ridiculous
killer job on this. Like the band often kind of switch from like one extreme to the other, and I think to capture a production that serves kind of both sides of their sound in the same song without there being like a disconnect is really impressive. The amount of reverb is just spot on. It's not overpowering, but it just like elevates those sections where the band open up. And the balance and instrumentation is really good as well. Like the bass really shines on this release in moments. Sometimes it's really metallic, almost heavier on the guitar. You know, there's a part at the end of Death Curl, I think it is, where the basses are like just so in your face. It's like just so much weight to it. But yeah, I think this is an album that gives you like so much. Like I'd say this is a post-hardcore album to an extent, but I also wouldn't categorize it as a post-hardcore album at the same time.
No, so that's core.
Yeah. They're kind of difficult to put in one box, but that's what I kind of like about them. It kind of leaves so many options on the table as to where they can take things musically, and whether that's from just like their background of playing in different bands, or they've got like a kind of wide range of influences. I don't know, but it does make things really interesting for the future as well, because they could really kind of take this in any direction and it wouldn't feel out of place. Or maybe not every direction, but like I draw the line at power metal, that sort of stuff. But like they have that option to really like expand on what they've done, like they did from the EP to the album. Really, I also think they have that next level in them as well. Like I feel like there's more in the tank here from this band, where there are elements on this album where they've kind of just like scratched the surface, and if they develop it even more, I think it's going to be exceptional. I think this release has some real like standout moments where the songwriting is like reaching its peak. You know, they're getting to that kind of 5-star kind of level. And I think if they can deliver that across an entire album, I think that'll be special. Like it really will. I really enjoyed this. I think these guys are definitely one to watch. And like you said, I think it's only a matter of time before this band gets much bigger. Like it'll happen for sure. Scores. What are you thinking for the debut album from Hidden Mothers?
I'm coming in with a big solid 4 for this one. I think it delivered a lot of what I wanted to hear. There was some surprises in here. I think the songwriting is super great. I also think we're in about that 20-year itch mark for Thrice as well, by the way. So you can usually start to clock when this is the influence of the parents on the kids. You know, like we might be starting to ride the crest of a little revival in the old post-hardcore wave. But yeah, I think these guys have got so much going on that makes me excited for them.
Yeah,
and super curious to see what comes next. So I'm giving it a 4.
Nice. As I said, I think there are tracks on here that are almost perfect, to be honest. They are like touching on that kind of top tier level. I think there's some that are kind of fall maybe around the kind of like 485 type quality for me. Still very good, but maybe not as like jaw dropping as some of the other tracks on the release. I'm going to go kind of in between on this one. I think it's a really, really strong album. I'm going to go 4.5, but I feel like there's a 5-star album in this band for sure. Like I will not be surprised if they come back on their next release and it's just a fucking banger front to back. Check this one out. Really enjoyed it. Hidden Mothers and Erosion, Avulsion out on November 29th on Church Road Records. Links below to the band, the pre-order, to all that sort of stuff. Check it out, have a listen, see what you think. That's the review. Thanks for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye everyone.